Hello, welcome to Z Marie Design. Let's upcycle men's ties into an envelope pillowcase. So let's get started. I begin by laying out my ties to create a pinwheel design. And I remove the tie tacks on the back and any of the tags, but I don't remove any of the interfacing from the ties. I'm going to use the large part of the tie along with the small part of the tie. So I start with my foundation fabric, which is a cotton linen blend, and I'm going to cut it. My pillow form is going to be a 20-inch pillow form, so I'm going to cut it 20 inches plus 1 inch for seam allowance. So I'll cut it, the panel, at 21 by 21 inches square. The back panel, I'm going to cut it at 20 inches, which is the pillow form, plus an additional 6 inch to create an overlap for the envelope, plus an additional 1 inch for half-inch seam allowance. So I'm going to cut it at 27 inches by 21 inches. So I am just measuring twice, so I can just cut once. Cut it at 27, and now I'll just change my fabric so I can cut it now at 21 inches. Now, as I washed and dried and I pressed my cotton linen fabric, the beige fabric, it lost some of its stiffness, and I want this foundation fabric to be a little heavier in weight, so I switched to this blue canvas fabric. And I wanted a fabric also, I didn't want to add interfacing because you will be able to see this as you put the pillow form in and out from both sides. So I didn't want to use interfacing on it, which you actually could if you want. But the blue fabric is a little heavier. So I will use this beige linen fabric as my pattern. Now you're only going to need one, but I'm going to cut two, just like it comes off the bolt, because I'm making more than one pillowcase. But you're only going to need one for your front and one for your back. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut that out. That's my front panel. Measures 21 by 21. We'll be sewing with a half-inch seam allowance. So I'll just put that one to the side for right now. And as you can see, you can't tell the back from the front unless you look really closely. So now I will move on to cutting my back panel. And again, I'm cutting two. My back panel measures 27 by 21. I'll start by folding it in half along the side that measures 27. I'm going to cut it in half because I want to create two panels. Each of my panels will measure 13 and a half by 21 inches. Now I'm going to fold on the long side. I'm going to do a double fold, half-inch, and I'll fold it in a half-inch and press, and fold it in another half-inch and press. And I just have a pasting line there that's a half-inch, so I'll know where my half-inch is. I do the fold, I press, I do another fold, press, and then I'll do a top stitch, and I'll do that on both of the panels. And you see there I have a top stitch, and I've hemmed it, a double fold hem on one of the long sides on each panel. So I'll put those back panels to the side for now, and I will begin attaching my ties to my front panel. My front panels, I'm going to fold those to create a crease line, and I will fold it and crease it on the horizontal. I'll fold it and crease it on the vertical. And then I will also fold it and crease it on the angle, on both angles, just so I'll have a placement crease for where my ties will go. So now you see the crease lines. I'm going to take my ties and I'm going to start with the largest part of the tie. I'm just clipping some threads there that's hanging in the back. And remember, I haven't removed that interfacing from the tie. It's still in there. Now, if your tie is really stiff, if the interfacing is really stiff, feel free to go ahead and remove that. I'm going to place the tie with the tip of the tie right at the tip of the center of the crease. And I'm going to save the smallest part of the tie because I'm going to use that also. But I'm going to continue to do that. I'll do it on the vertical and on the horizontal. I'll do those first, choosing the ties based on color, based on pattern, which ones you want to showcase in the center. And just making sure also that they touch on all sides. And then I will just continue to place them on the angle creases. And when I place it on the angle creases, I make sure that they touch the other two ties. I don't want any gaps in between the ties as I lay them down on the creasing. And I hadn't pinned anything in place yet, just in case I want to move any of the ties around as I continue with the layout. Now, once I like the layout, I'm now going to go ahead and pin these in place. And just adjusting just to make sure that that foundation fabric hasn't shifted on me. That is a pretty heavy weight. This is a home deck fabric that I have, so that canvas is it's a pretty heavy weight on there. And then I'll just follow the shape of the tie, and I will stitch all the way around the tie, and then stitching again at the edges where the raw edge is. And I'll do that for all of the ties when I take it to the sewing machine. And before I take it to the sewing machine, I'm just going to reduce some of the bulk before I get it to the sewing machine. I'm going to take off some of the excess of the tie. Now remember to keep that part of the tie because we're going to use the smallest part of the tie as well. And now I'm ready to do my top stitching. Now I'm going to do a blanket stitch on this. You can use a zigzag stitch or any other decorative stitch, or just increase your stitch length and just do a top stitch. So now that my stitching is done and I've attached my ties, this is what it looks like from the back. Now I'm just going to trim off those edges even with the raw edge of the front panel. And this is what it should look like so far. And I just used a blue thread to match my blue linen. So now I'm going to take the smallest part of the tie and I'm going to fill in between the areas that are in between those ties. And I'm just going to make sure that the top part of the tie is touching on either side. And just continue until I like my layout. And I didn't want to put the ties matching. I didn't want to put them side by side. So I'm just kind of putting them across. And I'm also going to utilize the tie tacks that are on the back of the ties. Now the client wanted, these are Jerry Garcia ties, and he really wanted to accent these. That's why I'm going to use the smallest portion of the tie, and that's why I'm going to incorporate the J. Garcia tie tags on the back. So I have everything all pinned in place, and I'm going to use that blanket stitch to attach the ties, following the shape of the tie. But then I will come back, and then I'm going to attach the tie tack down. To reduce the bulk, once again, I'm just going to cut off part of the ties before I take it to the sewing machine. I'm now going to cut it flush with the raw edge of the fabric, just in case there's some shifting during the sewing. So now everything has been attached and my tie tack has been attached. Now I didn't sew the tie tack completely down. I wanted it to have that little detail as though the small part of the tie has been put inside the tie tack, like you would if you were wearing the tie. And this is what it looks like from the back. So now I will trim all of my edges to make it even with the raw edge of the foundation fabric. So now the front panel of my pillowcase is all done. It's time to put this pillowcase together. So grab those two back panels that we previously cut and hemmed. And we're going to take the hem part of the back panel of one of the panels, and we're going to put those right sides facing. So right sides facing with the hem part of the panel facing to the center. You're going to match up your raw edges on the bottom and match up your raw edges on the side. Your second panel, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to take right sides facing with the hem of that panel facing toward the center, and it's going to overlap the first panel that you put down. It's going to overlap by 3 inches. Right sides are facing, the hem is toward the center. Match up your raw edges on your top and your bottom, and you're going to pin it in place. Now if your raw edges don't match completely, that's okay, because the front panel may have decreased in size because of all of the stitching that we did. We will actually sew from the front of the pillowcase because we want to make sure to follow that 1/2 inch seam allowance with the front of the raw edge of the pillowcase. And just pinning everything in place. And now you'll be able to see where a little bit of the raw edge doesn't match on my back panels. That's okay, we'll trim those up. we're going to sew from the front panel. You're going to follow the raw edge of your front panel, sewing your 1/2 inch seam allowance. And you'll see that it's off by just a scant 1/8 of an inch in some areas. I'm just going to trim that up. So sewing my 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around. Now on the hemmed part of this pillowcase, when you get to that area, I want you to go over that several times back and forth, because that's a stress point when you're putting your pillow form in and out. So you'll have 2 sides on both sides where you're going to sew back and forth over that. Now once it's all sewn, you're going to clip all 4 of your corners. Now you can zigzag stitch the edge. I'm going to serge my edge. And once you've done that, your pillowcase is all done. So I've serged my edge all the way around, and I'm going to put some fray check on the corners. And through the overlap part, where you've hemmed those panels, that's going to create your envelope style. That's where you're going to turn it right side out, and that's how you insert your pillow form. So I'm just making sure to push my corners out. You can use a turning tool to push those corners out. Give your pillowcase a really good press. And you are all done with this men's tie upcycled pillowcase. It's a great way to give those beautiful ties, this beautiful silk fabric, a new life. And my pillow form is inside my pillowcase. This is what it looks like from the front. You see the tie tacks there. This is what it looks like from the back, and you can see the overlapping of the back panels. That's how you get your pillow form in and out. This is not a pillowcase that I would wash. I would just spot wash this. I'll show you a few other styles that I did at the end of the video. I did a couple that are on the angle instead of in the pinwheel, and I did them a little different. Same pillowcase style, but just I attached them to the front panel a little different. If you want to see a video on how I created the angled pillowcase, leave me a comment below and I'll be happy to do a tutorial. And I hope you like this project, and I hope you give it a try. Thanks for watching.